All right, for those of you who are unaware of this, Bill Clinton had a clash with the Black Lives Matter people yesterday regarding that 1994 crime bill. And this is an example of a disconnect, okay? In the past, in front of the NAACP, Bill Clinton acknowledged that the things done in that crime bill basically were a mistake. And honestly, he apologized to them at that point. Okay, Hillary Clinton has sort of done the same thing. But yesterday, when he was heckled by a bunch of the local Black Lives Matter people, he basically defended the bill and defended his wife on her comments regarding super predators. Okay, I'm going to play the clip, and then I'm going to come back at the end with my commentary.
Okay, I heard it. Can I answer? No, you see, here's the thing. I like protesters, but the ones that won't let you answer are afraid of the truth. That's a simple rule. Be afraid. Be very, very afraid.
That's former President Bill Clinton getting a little testy with a couple of Black Lives Matter protesters during a campaign rally with his wife, Secretary Hillary Clinton, former Secretary Hillary Clinton, yesterday in Philadelphia. The protesters interrupted the rally several times, accusing Bill Clinton of damaging the black community by passing the controversial crime bill in 1994. Clinton fired back, defending the bill.
He was the chairman of the committee that had jurisdiction over this crime bill. I had an assault weapons ban in it. I had money for inner city kids, for out-of-school activities. We had 110,000 police officers so we could put people on the street, not in these military vehicles, and the police would look like the people they were policing. We did all that. And Biden said, you can't pass this bill, the Republicans will kill it if you don't put more sentencing in. I talked to a lot of African American groups. They thought Black Lives Matter. They said, take this bill because our kids are being shot in the street by gangs. You are defending the people who cause young people to go out and take guns. When somebody won't hush and listen to you, that ain't democracy. They're afraid of the truth. Don't you be afraid of the truth. Don't you be afraid of the truth. If you think it was bad in the 1990s, if you think record increases in income and record low unemployment, record decreases in poverty, and record small businesses forming was bad, you ought to go with them. Otherwise, you better elect Hillary president so we can get this country going again.
The former president's comments sparked a firestorm on Twitter, with many saying Clinton is accusing Black Lives Matter of defending criminals. So did he go too far, or was Bill Clinton right to defend himself? All right, folks, it seems like the crime bill from the mid-90s continues to haunt the Clintons. In February, of course, a protester interrupted Secretary Clinton's fundraiser, saying she was not a super predator. Secretary Clinton used the phrase while defending her husband's crime bill during his re-election campaign in 1996. So let's get right to it, talking about this particular issue. Let's go to Philadelphia via Skype. Are the protesters from yesterday's event, Erica Mines and Rufus Farmer. They are both activists for the Philly Coalition for Real Justice. And also in the studio in D.C., our panel attorney A. Scott Bolden, a partner with Reed Smith Law Firm, Allison Schneider, a Republican strategist, and Dr. Cleo Monago, the CEO of Black Men's Exchange. And so I want to talk about the both of you yesterday being at that particular rally. So this exchange actually was about 11 minutes, that total exchange. Why was it important for you to go to that rally to confront former President Bill Clinton?
It's important because here in the city of Philadelphia, we have major issues around police militarization and occupation in our communities. We have the same crimes that are increasing the mass incarcerations and the violence, not only just against black men, but we see it's also rising with black women and especially black youth. And the issue around policing and the numbers that we are seeing in our communities come directly from Bill Clinton putting 110,000 more officers in our communities and through the prison expansion program that was implemented through the 1994 crime bill.
Rufus, he made a point talking about then Senator Joe Biden, who actually was the author of this particular bill. He is now President Barack Obama's vice president. Why are folks not criticizing Biden for his role? Because again, he was the one who shepherded this bill through the United States Senate. Why is all the focus just on Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton?
Good morning. I think that a lot of people may not know about Vice President Biden's role in the bill.
But again, though, I mean, my point is, a lot of folks love President Barack Obama. He chose Vice President Joe Biden to be his running mate, and so yes, Bill Clinton signed it into law. He also championed it, but again, you have Biden. You also have a number of, as President Clinton said, a number of African Americans in the Congressional Black Caucus at the time who were calling for an expansive crime omnibus bill that covered a lot of different things, as he said. And so, what about them? Some of them are still in Congress.
Yes.
That doesn't make it correct, regardless of who endorsed it, who signed off on it. That doesn't make it correct. Vice President Biden does deserve criticism for it. However, Vice President Biden was not the one in Philadelphia yesterday.
So, but here's why I'm asking that question. I haven't seen any rallies where anybody from Black Lives Matter, any activists, have confronted Vice President Joe Biden. And again, this is not, for me, this is not a question of defending President Bill Clinton, but I'm asking the question, why single out Clinton? Why not expand it to the number of people who were involved with this bill, whether it was the person who sponsored it, who wrote it, who drove it through Congress, whether it was House Black Caucus members in the House who actually voted for it. Senator Bernie Sanders also voted for it. And of course, you have President Bill Clinton who signed it into law.
Well, Mr. Martin, just to reiterate, it was former President Bill Clinton that stepped in front of us yesterday in Philadelphia. He was given a speech. We had the opportunity to address him, not Vice President Biden, not anyone else who endorsed or signed off on that bill. Also, it is the former president's wife who is running for president. So I think it's imperative that we address former President Bill Clinton and even Hillary Clinton.
And if I can add that we take criticism with all of the politicians who signed off on that crime bill. We don't hold one accountable any less than the others. We have the same criticisms of Bernie Sanders. We have the same criticism of the Congressional Black Caucus. We have the same criticism of Joe Biden. None of them are exempt from this idea or this whole issue around the 1994 crime bill. But again, Hillary Clinton is running for president. If Joe Biden would have shown up in Philadelphia, he would have been challenged the very same way.
Absolutely.
We don't have any regards over any of the politicians that are currently in office in D.C. right now, because all of them participate in the criminalization of black folks, and they are all guilty.
So both of you showed up there in Philadelphia. What is it that you want Secretary Clinton to do?
First of all, we would like for Hillary Clinton to stop profiting off of people's pain, specifically black women who have lost their loved ones through two unarmed killings of black men and women.
How is she, Erica, how is she profiting off of black people's pain?
Well, to be quite honest, you cannot be against police assaults, assassinations, the unjust killings of black people, and then also be for the death penalty. That is a contradiction, because we already know that because of the 1994 crime bill that actually put a lot of police officers in our communities is the reasons why we have a lot of unjust murders happening throughout the country. And so you can't be against policing in one way and then still be for the death penalty, knowing that we have cases such as like Khalif Browder out of New York, who did not even commit a crime and served over 2 years in jail, and then he came out unstable and committed suicide. It wasn't Khalif Browder that killed himself, it was the state, and it was because of the issues around policing in our communities that was allowed to happen. And we already know that
With the Khalif Browder, I gotta ask you this question though, but wouldn't the Khalif Browder issue, wouldn't that be one for New York Governor Cuomo, for New York Mayor Bill de Blasio, two other Democrats, two liberals?
No, it's a question around policing altogether. It's a question around how we are constantly criminalized in our communities and how the police interact with us. It's not separate from Pennsylvania and New York. This is a national problem that we have with police when it comes to the way that they interact with us in our communities. And so that is, we already know that there are people who are, just over the past years, we can count for the numerous people who have been exonerated, who have served 30, 40, 50 plus years in life because they were falsely accused of crimes that they did not commit. And so we know that there are people who have been unjustly executed through the death penalty. And so we know that there are faulty systems in the police system. We know that is a racist system. And so
So you would like Hillary Clinton to renounce her support of the death penalty. What else, when it comes to criminal justice reform, would you like to see Hillary Clinton do?
To be quite honest, I would like for Hillary Clinton, when it comes to the Black community, to stop treading around the issues and think that she can just politely brush over them and think that because she says Black Lives Matter, like, then that means that she's doing the right thing. And we already
the issues. What issues? Here's why I'm asking these questions. Because again, if we're talking about accountability and challenging politicians, let's be specific with them to say we want to see this. So you mentioned renouncing her position on the death penalty. What else?
To be quite honest, I can't speak universally for everyone on this issue around what I would like or what Hillary Clinton.
Right. I'm not asking everyone. I mean just you and Rufus. I'm asking the two of you because the two of you were there yesterday.
Well, I would like for her to stand up against the crimes that her husband actually committed in our communities. I would like for her to admit to them. Unfortunately, sorry is not a way to do it. I would like for her to begin petitioning for the decrease in prison expansions, especially here in Pennsylvania. I would like for her to just admit to the atrocities that have accumulated through the actions of her husband, through the whole mandated 3 strikes law. I would like for them to start implementing programs and dealing with the issues around prison, not just Black men, women, but the youth as well, because the youth are also being targeted as well. I would like for them to also speak to the fact that they decrease money in public education, and it is the reason why we have underfunded schools. It's the reason why we have more police in schools than we do have nurses and social workers now. And this is the reason why we have like such issues or huge issues around policing, police brutality, and things like that. I would like
so let me play this here. You guys should be able to hear this here.
Now, I'm just going to jump in here real quick. He should have let her continue because he was pressing her for the things that she wanted. So he should have let her continue until she was done.
This was President Bill Clinton, because you talked about owning up to that particular crime bill. This is what President Bill Clinton had to say in July when he addressed the NAACP.
The president spoke a long time yesterday and very well about the criminal justice reform, and I appreciate what he has done. But I want to say a few words about it, because I signed a bill that made the problem worse, and I want to admit it. In that bill, there were longer sentences, and most of these people are in prison under state law, but the federal law set a trend, and that was overdone. We were wrong about that. That percentage of it, we were wrong about.
So, Eric and Rufus, when you hear President Clinton say 8 months ago that we were wrong about it, is that an acknowledgement that they made some mistakes with that 1994 crime bill?
Admitting that they were wrong about it 8 months ago, it doesn't correct everything. It doesn't make it right. It doesn't erase what happened.
Right.
If you talk to the families of some of the people that have been incarcerated, former President Clinton just admitting that it was wrong is not enough. They need to do more than that. Furthermore, what he said yesterday to us, directly to us, was not in the same vein. That he basically accused us of supporting drug dealers and things of that sort. So it was a little bit of a different tone yesterday. I'm sure you saw it.
Right, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, first of all, Eric and Rufus, we certainly appreciate you joining us right here on TV1. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, this is going to go over 20 minutes. The good thing about Black Lives Matter and one of the negatives about Black Lives Matter, the good thing about Black Lives Matter is that young black people are becoming active and that the organization is decentralized, okay? So that individuals are the ones in the various chapters that are stepping up to speak, okay? The bad thing about Black Lives Matters is that the organization is decentralized. There is no one national spokesperson and I want to say accomplished. Now, there are certain people out there, Delray McKesson, who is a very accomplished speaker, but for the most part, the people that are being active within Black Lives Matter, most of them are not really accomplished speakers. And there's really, there's nothing wrong with that. But the other portion of that is a lot of them are unprepared once they get through their initial thrust of a problem. They're unprepared to speak in depth. Now, I commend the young lady who spoke here. After Roland basically rolled back and gave her an opportunity to think, she was able to get her thoughts together and start coming up with reasons, answers, and solutions that she was looking for. And I'm sure that if in the future, if she takes the time to sit down and to go over all the things that she wants, she would be able to enunciate it in a more, I guess, professional, concise manner. But again, I'm not damning them for being unprofessional. I mean, if Roland Martin were, I guess, part of their chapter, obviously his enunciation of the issues and the solutions that he's looking for obviously would be much better. But hell, he's been doing this, for 20, 30 years. Okay, the Black Lives Matter movement has, for the most part, been in operation for 5 years, and I'm pretty sure this. If it isn't really the first time that they've been out in front of the camera doing an interview, I don't believe that these two people have done 10 interviews total throughout their involvement, and definitely not 10 that were going to be pressed as Roland Martin is doing here.
We're going to my panel right now. And so, Cleo, I want to start with you. And it's this idea of tone. So I think people, when they saw the video from yesterday, and then you saw that clip we played from the NAACP speech, again, yesterday it really was about an 11-minute section at the NAACP. It really was about a 3-minute section where he talked about the 1994 crime bill. Is it a question of how the Clintons are answering these questions? Should they be showing more sympathy, more empathy, more compassion, as opposed to coming off as defending the crime bill?
Well, I think there's a perception issue here in terms of what the Clintons see and what people in the community see, and I see what the community sees. And I think that what Bill Clinton said yesterday kind of contradicts his apology, because he accused the people there who were protesting the bills that Bill Clinton had passed that created a lot of criminals, quote unquote, in the community. He accused them of defending criminals. And what is not a part of none of the Clintons' analysis is the school to prison pipeline, the circumstances in the community that leads to this behavior among some of our youth where they act out. He's not talking about the impact of building prisons and the impact of police brutality and how that traumatizes people. There's a film that came out that anybody can see on Netflix called Crips and Bloods Made in America, which gives a very brilliant depiction of what happened in these communities that led a lot of these young boys into so-called violent behavior. A lot of people don't realize that the black community before the 70s was one of the most safest places black people could be in this country because the black communities were a lot less violent. So some things occurred that exacerbated violence.
One of the things, okay, that created the problem in the black community, President Nixon's policies basically were an attack on the black community. And when he got into office, basically you can actually draw a straight line on the increase in problems in our communities. So that was one. Number two, you got your buddy Ronald Reagan, who was the one who directly contributed to the drug issue within the black community with his pouring of cocaine and various other drugs into the community to finance his illegal war down in South America. So those two presidents had a lot to do with the issues that we have in the black community. Okay, and then Clinton basically just exasperated the situation with his crime bill, which history shows really wasn't that necessary because the levels of crime had spiked and they were already starting to decline when he put that crime, when he signed off on that crime bill. That crime bill basically was just giving cover to the Democrats who at that time wanted to remain in power, and so they had to appear tough on crime, as tough on crime as Republicans, if not more so.
Allison?
For him to say that they're defending criminals is very disrespectful and minimizes any kind of previous apology.
Allison?
And one thing I think that might be missing from this discussion is that criminal justice reform is a bipartisan issue. When we talk about mandatory minimums, they have disproportionately affected the black community, and youthful convictions shouldn't deter higher aspirations for the rest of your life. And unfortunately, that's what we're seeing right now. So I think we need to come together to move the ball forward and reform the criminal justice system.
Yeah, mandatory minimums, when you have the system that looks on blacks as the problem, and they knew what they were doing, because when they changed the drug classifications of powder cocaine versus rock cocaine, they knew which group was using what. So they basically targeted the black community when they increased the sentencing guidelines for the use of those two particular drugs. One had one sentence, and the other, the sentencing guideline was 10 times the amount of the lower sentence.
Well, first of all, Scott, you got a bill right now that's frankly stuck in the U.S. Senate and the House. You do have some bipartisan support, but they frankly haven't moved on it. But when you look at this here, Scott, do you believe it makes sense to relitigate, if you will, what took place in 1994? Do you believe that Hillary Clinton should be held accountable for a crime bill that her husband signed into law, that Vice President Joe Biden, as a U.S. Senator from Delaware, pushed through, and that a couple of dozen of Congressional Black Caucus members also voted for?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, this is a complicated story, and I'm glad you're doing it, but this is an extraordinary exchange yesterday for these 11 minutes. It just was extraordinary, and it highlights the problem. On one hand, communities of color, who are you going to call? You got to still call the police. Without the crime bill, you still have the abuses and all the other issues communities of color have with the police.
Yeah, I love these guys. Yeah, you still are going to call the police, but you don't have, okay, see what's happening is when they increased the number of police, they were taking lesser and lesser qualified candidates and running them through the police academies. So yeah, you would still have had to call the police, but before you were calling, hopefully you were calling, not in all cases, but in a lot of cases, you were calling a policeman or woman that basically had more empathy than the current police officer of today. Today, they are taught that everyone, black, white, Hispanic, whatever, we are all the enemy, okay? And they are God on the street. Whereas back in the day, they were not taught that we were all the enemy. Now, you had some racists up in here who abused their authority, but you know, for the most part, they were helpful to some degree, okay? But now, you know, you call the police and you basically are taking your life in your hands because of the quality of the police officer. And they all turn to a bunch of bitches because, you know, the first thing they're concerned about is their own safety. And yeah, they should be concerned about their safety, but, you know, if you got a guy running around butt naked with nothing in his hands, and that man has to be shot, they are unwilling to take any risk that is associated with the job. So, and let's, you know, this, I'm not sure exactly, you know, where he's coming from or if he's actually thought this out.
It's very complicated, and they're all right and they're all wrong. The reality, though, that I saw yesterday was that the Democrats are going to have this problem once we get to the presidential election, because you've got Black Lives Matter who accuse the Democrats of creating this pipeline from community to prison, and then you're going to have the Republicans, and whenever Bill Clinton shows up, he's there to promote his wife and advocate for his wife, and he winds up defending his record, and then they're putting his record on her record, blaming both of them, and then even they're at odds with the Obama administration. This is complicated, and look for more of these protests from not just Republicans, but from Black Lives Matter and going forward. This presidential election is going to be crazy, man.
To the three of you, look, President Bill Clinton has talked about how repealing Glass-Steagall did not go so well. He's talked about one of the worst bills that he signed was the Telecommunications Act of 1996 that caused massive changes in the media industry as well. And so, to all three of you, how much can voters hold Hillary Clinton accountable for the policies of her husband when he was president? And should they? Allison?
Well, I think insofar as Hillary Clinton is associating herself with her husband's policies and having him on the stump advocating for her, they are right to consider his record when they think about what she would look like as a president.
And she's the one use her own lips to call people super predators. Well, she said that. It wasn't her husband. He treated people like super predators, but she actually articulated that. But one thing I just want to say is that what might be helpful to the Clintons is to get a clue and learn why there's cause and effect in the black community or other communities that have these so-called criminal problems and what leads people from the pipeline to prison. They don't have an analysis of that, therefore they can't address it.
Scott? Yeah, well, I think it's unfair to blame Hillary Clinton, but then Hillary Clinton puts the story, puts the issue before the public when Bill Clinton advocates for her and campaign stumps for her. I think what would be important for the Democrats and Hillary Clinton is to not only strike a different tone, you're absolutely right about that, but two, and more importantly, to lay out her record compared to his record, or at least both of their record, and either you're going to defend it or you're going to apologize about it in regard to the criminal justice system, because while it's 20 years later, our communities of color are still suffering from the same problems. Some caused by the police, and some caused by our own communities and the bad actors in our communities.
All right, folks, hold tight 1 second. When we come back, we're going to talk about...
All right, so they didn't even really show the clip where Bill Clinton really got heated with the Black Lives Matter people. Honestly, I'm kind of glad they didn't, because they've spoken about the exchange, but that wasn't pretty, and that didn't really shine the best light on Bill Clinton. Now, I was never the biggest Bill Clinton fan, all right, and that saxophone on Arsenio, that to me, that was basically a slap in the face, and all of a sudden now he's the first black president. That was a bunch of bullshit. Okay. But at the same time, there were a lot of bad actors on that damn crime bill. Okay, a lot. Bernie Sanders, again, he signed off on it, but he was the only one who actually went out on the floor of the House of Representatives and railed against that particular portion of the bill as far as the 3 strikes and basically the criminalization of the black community. And he said it on the floor, and there is footage proving that that bill was going to be a detriment to the black community. He also attempted to amend that crime bill to knock out some of the most dangerous and harmful portions of that crime bill for the black community, but his amendments were voted down, and Hillary Clinton was one of the ones that was shepherding the voting down of his amendments. So again, you have to decide for yourself. Hillary Clinton is constantly harping on how good things were during her husband's administration, so she was throwing her arms around it. Well, if you got to take the bad with the good. If you're going to claim that everything was great, well, here were examples of where everything wasn't great. So you're going to have to accept Bill Clinton's crime bill as part of his legacy. Now, they didn't even go into welfare reform, okay, which had a derogatory effect on the black community. And then countrywide, him getting rid of Glass-Steagall is another thing that basically helped to blow up the black community. You say blow up just the black community? Yeah, blow up the black community, because when the economy tanked 2007, 2008, yes, the overall country suffered, but the black community suffered much more than the white community. And be honest with you, we still haven't recovered from that, whereas the majority of the white community, they have recovered. They have recovered equity. They had the stock market is basically going crazy. They have recovered homes. We basically have lost a lot. Actually, during that period, we lost almost all the equity that we had in our homes. And yes, it has started to come back, but we are nowhere near recovering from where we were in 2008, whereas white America basically has, for the most part, recovered. Now, are they ahead as far as home equities and wealth are concerned? No, they're not. But we would damn sure be willing to change places with them at this point in time, because we're still looking up, where they're just looking out.